Happy Wednesday, guys. Welcome to WagerTalk TV. This is Two and Out. This is the CFL preview show, the inaugural show today, and we're going to do this every week with Andrew McInnis, our CFL expert over at WagerTalk. We'll have some insiders coming in talking about the week in the CFL. We'll have a market mover. We'll talk about one game that you want to get on early before the line moves. We'll have Inside the Numbers, where we'll look at all the numbers posted at the sports books. And of course, we'll finish it off with the extra point, which is similar to the show Best Bet that we do on Puck Time. Andrew McInnis, let's bring him in. Andrew, you are the top guy as far as I'm concerned, CFL over at Wager Talk. How are things with you?
Carmine, I am super excited. I can't wait for the CFL season to begin. I've been heavy into my research. Canadian football is something that I love watching, love researching, and most importantly for our audience, I love betting on it. And I love the segments we have set up here for the show. All kinds of different things to look at with the market mover and the extra point at the end to give a good free bet to all of our viewers. So I'm looking forward to it, looking forward to hopefully getting people into the CFL the same way you and I got people into hockey on Puck Time. So I can't wait for this show, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, there are a lot of rivalries. There's only 9 teams in this league, but it's still 9 teams, 4 games every week. They're spread out this week, a Thursday, a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday game. A couple changes that they've made along the way, the CFL, which I think is very good, is come playoff time. I think the playoff games are on Saturdays. They won't go head to head with the NFL, of course. But from a betting perspective, there is money to be made in the CFL, and the season kicks off this weekend with the NBA and NHL finals ending in about 7 to 10 days. It's going to give you another venue or another avenue to make money, Andrew. And you know, let's get right to it. I want to get into the the market mover section of this show and segment of this show. And I want to go to you. You're looking at the Winnipeg and Hamilton game. Give us your thoughts on why this is the market mover and what people should be getting on as far as this game goes.
Carm, it's really nice this year because the CFL opened up the season with lots of rivalries and lots of really close games. So there weren't that many big point spreads this year to start. Past few years, we've seen some teams laying touchdowns in their opening week one. But when I'm looking at this game, I will tell people the money has come in on the under. The number has started to move on that. I did see some shops showing 48, then 47.5, down to 47. And even saw some showing 46.5 before it popped back up to 47. But I do expect that number to continue to drop and fall down. I believe there will be an emphasis on the running game for both these clubs. But I also think that nobody talks enough about their defense, and that's why that number is getting pushed down. So if you do like the under in this game, you want to get in on it ASAP. And as far as the number concerned for the point spread, well, money continues to come in on the team that's been to the Grey Cup several straight times. That is the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And for me, if you like the dog, you want to wait all the way up until kickoff. If you like the favorite, you want to get in right now as fast as you can before that number gets even worse. So I am seeing some movement in this game and in the CFL, Carm. As you know, there's lots of movement, and that's why I always push people, if they're interested in my CFL, to grab those long-term packages.
And yeah, and Andrew, and later on in the show, I will list a couple of promos that people can take advantage of yours. But you mentioned it, it's the volatility of the number, and we see it in some sports. Obviously, in the NBA, whether it's the NBA, whether it's MLB, whether it's NFL, you always want to get the best number, and that's why maybe sort of the long-term packages. The minute you put it up, is the minute you want people to play it. Grabbing a number and betting it early. If you release a number at 3 and you want them to grab it at 3, that's when you guys should be grabbing it, not waiting until game day just because you don't want to tie up your money for 3-4 days and then the number's at 5.5 and you've missed the number. And this has happened in the CFL in past years, including last year, where you want to grab a number, especially a total, because those can move fast. Agree?
Absolutely. And of course, I will be making sure that there are some consensus numbers out there, but they will move quickly. And especially, some people, Carm, I notice across different sports, they like to tread lightly, at the start of a season. And I'm not saying I'm attacking the board, releasing, several 4% plays or anything, but I will not be treading lightly. I will trust my research and trust my numbers because I feel like that usually near the midway point of the CFL season, the numbers can be sharper. At the start, I don't believe the numbers are where they should be, and it's a really good chance as we start the season off to take advantage of some of these soft numbers. So that is where we'll see the most movement, I believe, over these first 3 or 4 weeks of the season. So lots of money to be made if we're getting in early and getting the best numbers possible, which is why I think it's a great day for us to have this show on a Wednesday, for us to be able to get in before a lot of these numbers close and then before game time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yes, tomorrow is game 3 of the Stanley Cup Finals, but it is also the opening weekend or opening week of the CFL season. So I'm looking forward to some Thursday night football as well. I think we're all looking forward to some Thursday night football. And Andrew, you talked about treading lightly, and this is a great way for me to segue into this next segment, which is our insiders report. And coming in today, if you haven't heard from him, I'm going to talk about him, is Rob Braley. And I'm going to bring in Rob Braley. His Twitter handle is @Rob_Braley. And the Braley family has owned CFL teams, the BC Lions, the Hamilton Tiger Cats, the Toronto Argonauts. Rob's a great guy, has a ton of information, and I'm going to throw some curveballs at him. Hopefully he can help us out with this. I think Rob's best move, I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent here. Rob's best move is last year saying to me, Carm, let me be your silent partner in the circus millions. I won't bug you on any games. You just let me know who we're cheering for. Rob and I win 18-1-1 in the first month of the season, and we cashed 105K. We're pretty happy about that. And we're going to come right back and try and do it again this year, Rob. But welcome to the show.
Thanks, Carm. Thanks for having me, guys. This is a very exciting time. I'm as excited as Andrew for the CFL to start. And going back to our NFL pool there, I'm just glad I dropped Don Buster, and you were lucky enough to get rid of the Prez, and it all worked out and was very profitable.
Yeah, I dropped the Prez. You dropped Don Buster, but Buster is a great guy. He had a very good NFL season in that circa pool, so we'll give him credit where credit is due. But Rob, I'm going to sort of go back and forth between the East and the West, and I'm going to look at the 3 different teams just to get some feedback from you on, whether these are bettable teams, whether they are bettable as far as winning the Grey Cup, or even if they're bettable as far as their season win totals. And one is Montreal. Montreal had a very good offensive line last year. The running game was pretty good, and they get from Saskatchewan, they get QB Cody Fajardo, if I pronounce that correctly. Is that good enough? Getting a quality QB for that team, is that good enough? Their season win total is at 7.5 wins right now, so they're about third, I think, in that division, in the East Division, as far as win totals go, with the Argos being up top, and their odds to win the Grey Cup are at plus 1,200, 12-1. Is this just a stay away? Is there any value in any of those numbers?
Montreal to win the Grey Cup would not be my play at 12-1. They've had a good offseason. They've had a very consistent, steady offseason. They don't have what you want to call superstar receivers, but they're going to do it by committee. And I don't think that they've gotten worse. They may get a little bit better with some offensive impact from Jason Moss. He's proven that he knows how to run an offense, and that might help them. But I think they might struggle out of the gate. A new quarterback, new coach, new everything. But I have them as a 9, potentially a 9-9 season. I don't see them going back under 7 or 6. I think Ottawa's going to be a little bit better, but I think Hamlin's going to be a little bit worse. So I have them in the middle of the pack at 9-9, and I'd have to say no to the Grey Cup at 12-1.
Rob, I want to jump in and ask you just about the coaching staff. You mentioned Jason Moss, and I think it's interesting because I always speak about the fact that there's so many different coaches and star players that get moved around the league every single off season. But of course, Fajardo and Moss are already familiar with each other based on the past 2 seasons they spent together in Western Canada. How do you think that benefits those two to start the year off compared to other teams that might not have that chemistry with their new coaches?
It should definitely help. What did they actually accomplish together, though, is my question, right? I mean, how successful were they? Jason Moss, he can be volatile. I think it's important that they get off to a good start. Otherwise, that you could see some trouble down the road. But I think it's definitely a benefit for them to start off the season together for sure.
So, Rob, I want to switch gears here, and because we talked about obviously the Saskatchewan quarterback coming over, he was the big free agent, and I guess in 2023, you can talk about it to go ahead into the season, and now we switch over to into the West, and you look at the Rough Riders, and they replace him with 36-year-old Trevor Harris. He's behind an offensive line that last year. I'm not sure if they improved, but last year they allowed over 70 sacks. Does this guy even survive the season if that offensive line it doesn't get any better? And Saskatchewan as a whole, do you look at this as a season for them where it's just a rebuilding season? It's tough to rebuild with a 36-year-old QB, but any pros and cons to this team this year?
Saskatchewan did go out and get some help on the O-line. They signed left tackle Philip Blake. He's about 6'3", 320 out of Baylor. He's got 5 or 6 years experience. They went and got Peter Godber. He started 16 games for the BC Lions at center last year. And they got themselves a right tackle and Jared Hawkins. So we'll see. They still have the same guards, and I think that their guards were probably their biggest problem last year. So they haven't improved there, but we'll see what this offensive line does for Trevor Harris. But it's duly noted that they have also 3 good quarterbacks behind him in camp. Jake Dolagala is about 6'7", 240 drop back passer. Not a typical CFL style quarterback, but his arm is unbelievable. Might be the best arm in the league. Then they followed up with Shea Patterson out of Michigan and Ole Miss. And Mason Fines, who was there last year, had a good camp as well. So if Trevor Harris goes down, I think they're in a pretty good situation to fill the hole there, which I do expect him to go down at some point.
That's one thing about him. He's proven what he can do in the league. He's had some great seasons for different teams, but of course that age is always in question. It's important to have that great depth. Rob, I wanted to ask you more of a generic question about the league and just which teams you expect to maybe drop off maybe a little bit this season and which teams you expect to take steps in the right direction. Winnipeg's been dominating for years. We have seen the top of the East be a little bit up and down, but of course, Toronto came out of nowhere last year and won the Grey Cup as pretty big underdogs. Which teams do you think regress and which teams do you think move in the right direction?
Well, as far as regression goes, I gotta look at the veteran teams. Winnipeg is probably the second oldest team in the league. If you look at their defense, there's a lot of 34-year-olds, 32-year-olds, 35-year-olds. And with the 18-week season, that's going to take a toll. And I can see some regression from Winnipeg. I think their win total's at 13.5. They won 15 last year. I would lean a little bit on the under there. I also see Hamilton as having some issues as well. Another team with Van Ziel's going to be 40 this year. Simone Lawrence, I think, is 34, 35. Ted Laurent's been there forever, since I was a kid, I think. But I would look for regression probably from those 2 teams first. And as far as teams improved, I really like what BC's doing. I think they got 2 really good quarterbacks. They might be the best in the West, but I'm going to give the edge to Calgary. I think Calgary is just so consistent, and Mayer played great last year at the end. And I look for those 2 teams to battle for the West.
Rob, when you talk about like Winnipeg, and I get it because we've discussed this before about regression on this team, a team with and obviously an older lineup. Do you look at this as far as this season is much like in any other sport with an aging lineup, the kind of like the one last run to win a title before we need to start getting some fresh faces, some younger guys in, some fresh bodies, and to your point of obviously as well too of age could be a factor in an 18 game season. It's a 20 game, obviously 20 games long, but 18 games which they play along with the buys. But if they hold up, if the bodies hold up in those mid 30s, do these guys make a return trip to the Grey Cup, or is the team standing in front of them the BC Lions?
I wouldn't count Winnipeg out. I mean, if they stay healthy, they're still probably the best team in the league. At some point, though, something's got to give here, right? They've had their good runs. It's borderline CFL dynasty, I guess. But every good thing comes to an end at some point. I just don't think. I think they had their window, and they won a Grey Cup. They're in a Grey Cup, and I don't know. They could be there. I could be wrong, but I see some regression. And I think the same thing plays with Hamilton. They've held on to all these veteran guys. I think they're taking one last shot at it, and if it doesn't work out, they're going to have to blow it up.
So, this final game I want to talk about, I'm a Toronto guy, not game, but team. I'm a Toronto guy, of course. I've gone to watch so many Argo games, so many teams that have won, and they are the defending Grey Cup champions. So I'm pretty sure you and I will catch a game and we'll have some money on it because you're a Hamilton guy, and I know it. So we're going to have some money on that. Whether it's the Labor Day game or this game in July, we'll have something going on. But I want to talk about the Argos here. This is a team that wins the Grey Cup last year, and I want to talk about their QB, Chad Kelly. For those who don't know who Chad Kelly is, he is the nephew of former Bills great Jim Kelly, and drafted in the NFL by the Denver Broncos. He was released, and maybe Rob will get into that, or we'll talk about it. But he's named the starter, and he wasn't the starter last year. So it is a big change at QB for them. What do you expect from the Argos this year, and what do you expect from Chad Kelly?
I actually have the Argos to win the East. I think that they brought most of their talent back, Grey Cup winning talent. They got Curly Giddens Jr., they got Tavares Daniels, they got great receivers. Their defense was excellent. If they can stay out of the penalty issues they had, cost them a couple games last year. But other than that, Chad Kelly, if you don't know who Chad Kelly is, he just described it. But his shady past, I'll call it, not shady, but he got kicked off of Clemson for behavior detriment to the team. He went to Ole Miss. He got charged with trespassing, criminal or something. I don't know. Then he shows up on the Netflix series, Last Chance U. I guess he got a chance off on Last Chance U. It's a true story. But the guy's world-class talent. You got to give him that. If he can hold it together for 18 weeks and not go little Johnny Manziel on us, I think Toronto's probably stronger than last year. I looked at Bethel Thompson's stat the other day, and Bethel Thompson had 4 or 5 tackles, and that's not good from a quarterback. So I think there's room for improvement there.
So, and you talked about it, and I'm going to throw it right back to you, but obviously issues in Buffalo, getting into a couple of barroom brawls, the trespassing charge, which is why the Denver Broncos eventually released him. But you believe he's got the talent. Is this, if he can keep it together for a year in Toronto and put up some really good numbers, is this his avenue into getting back into the NFL? Do you think?
Yeah, it's all about behavior. He has the talent. There's no question. I mean, there was a reason he was in the NFL because he's a fantastic quarterback. He has all the tools. He's got the genetics. He's got everything that quarterback needs, and he just has to hold it together. But that's the question mark, right? He can play football, no question. But we'll see what happens up here when he's not making a $2 million down there.
Well, maybe Uncle Jim can keep him grounded at least for a season, and we'll see what we get out of him. I have to believe that Jim's going to make it up for some of the home games, at least here,
What's
if not for the Labor Day game in Hamilton. So
Car,
I'm a big
what's
Jim
or,
Kelly fan, of course.
Andrew?
Did you
What's
want
the
to
win
follow up
total
at all,
for
Rob?
Toronto? What's the win total for Toronto
The
this year?
So the current win
9.5 as
total
well, I think.
for the Argos is 9.5, minus 125 over at DK, and their odds to win the Grey Cup is they are the second choices behind the Blue Bombers at plus 500.
I would go with the over on that one for sure. I think they're going to win 11, 12 games.
Okay. Rob, listen, for those of you looking to follow Rob on Twitter, his Twitter handle is at Rob_Braley, Bralui. Rob's a good guy. He'll occasionally post some info, and Rob's going to help us along. Come on, some more appearances throughout the year, and is going to hook us up with some CFL talent who will come in and talk about some CFL games throughout the year. So, Rob, we really appreciate you coming on this morning with us to talk CFL.
My pleasure, guys. My pleasure. Let's have a great season. Looking forward to the show.
All right.
Thanks,
Go
Rob.
Argos and Ticats, of course. So that's Rob Braley, our insider today on the show, and we really want to thank Rob. Like I said, his family has been involved in the CFL for many years. I can't go as far back. Obviously, his dad, who passed away, David Braley, owner of the BC Lions, the Hamilton Tiger Cats, the Toronto Argonauts. Rob has a ton of connections in the CFL. So when he gives out some information, you want to obviously listen to it. Andrew, I want to get into the inside the numbers now, and we've got the odds for the 4 games that are being played this week in the NFL, and we will get them on the screen. And you are going to talk about the Montreal and Ottawa game. So I'll throw it to you for your thoughts on the Alouettes and Ottawa.
Carm, every year, the Western Division has been kind of decided. Everybody knows who the top dogs were in that division, but the East is always wide open. This game, albeit it's week 1, is pretty big for both clubs here, but a lot of change has happened for both teams. For Ottawa to be successful, in my opinion, they have to have established that chemistry right away. They have a new offensive coordinator and a new defensive coordinator that were both hired near the end of last season, pretty much right at the start of the offseason. If they want to be successful, they have to have gathered that chemistry, and all the messages those coaches wanted to get across to those players have to be given and have to be understood right at kickoff. That team really struggled last year, and now Masoli has been announced that he'll be out for the first 2 weeks. Nick Arbuckle will be the starting quarterback for Ottawa. Last year, Carmine, he had more interceptions than passing touchdowns. Not a recipe for success, but they are healthier. They did make some off-season acquisitions, so I believe they will be better this year. But for them to be good and be successful in this game against Montreal, they have to take care of the ball. They have to get the defense off the field. And really, I think their game plan for them is keeping it simple. They do have the talent, but if they can keep it simple and the communication is there with their new OC and new DC, they can be successful. As far as the Montreal Alouettes are concerned, Rob touched on it. Jason Moss added as the head coach in the offseason for the Alouettes, and it works out very well because he was the offensive coordinator in Saskatchewan for the new quarterback, Cody Fajardo. Now, if they can stay healthy, especially at the running back position, it was very tough for them last year when William Stanback went out with an injury. He's one of the best running backs in the league. And they can get their special teams going because they have a great group of guys that can return the ball and run strong. They will be a very good ball club, and they can make noise in the division. Also important to mention about the wildfires going on in the eastern part of Canada. Ottawa had their practice postponed and canceled a few short days ago. So with them already not knowing who their starter was going to be, and then having Masoli announced out for the next 2 weeks and getting a practice canceled, Montreal dealing with similar issues, we will see who is the most prepared. But I'm looking at everything as far as this game, trying to analyze which team will be able to make the difference, and the coaches, the new players they picked up. But that's what you should be watching. If you're looking to bet this game, make sure you're taking a look at all the media reports. You're checking out which guys are starting, which guys are still on that injured list, because I believe a healthy Montreal is a good Montreal this year.
All right, and yeah, you talked about Mazzoli in a couple of weeks, and I'm hearing that that could even stretch out to as far as a month. They give him a month before he comes back, so obviously that's a big miss. Guys, before we head into the extra point, which is the end of the show, and a best bet from Andrew, want to mention a couple promos for Andrew. The first one is AM7, where you can get 7-day all access package for $69. That is a great deal. Get every sport. Andrew, of course, also does NHL, also does UFC, Major League Baseball. So there's a ton of action that you can get over the next 7 days for only $69. And that's going to cover every CFL game that's being played Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, if you pick it up today. And if you want to take his whole CFL season, you can get $100 off by using code CFL100. CFL 100 gets you $100 off the full season of the CFL right through to the Grey Cup that'll be hosted in Hamilton this season. Andrew, let's go to the extra point. This is the feature, much like on Puck Time, where we have our best bet segment. The extra point is where you give everyone who is watching a free play and a winner. So I'll throw it back to you.
Carmine, I'm going right back to the game that we just spoke about, the Montreal Alouettes and Ottawa Redblacks. Starting with the Ottawa Redblacks, I mean, looking at this team since their appearance in the Grey Cup in 2018, in 3 straight years, they have failed to earn more than 4 wins. They are struggling, but they are trying to make changes, and the big changes they made were adding to their defense in the offseason. I believe they added some key guys to make some big tackles and help slow down their opposition, slow down Montreal's attack. Looking at things, though, I believe the big key for them will be to keep things simple. Run the ball, simple plays, keep Nick Arbuckle out of trouble. I don't really expect them to go deep too much. Like I mentioned earlier, the interceptions I saw from Nick Arbuckle last year, I believe they will play it safe, especially with them still getting to know their new coaching staff. I like the under this week between Montreal and Ottawa. Of course, I mentioned some coaching staff changes on that Montreal side. They have a very talented Montreal running back core. Several guys that can run the ball, but especially Stanback when he's healthy. He is a lethal threat out there. And I think that they're actually a little bit dangerous with their pass rush. So with this number, with it being week 1, and with some of those practices being canceled leading up to week 1 due to the East Coast wildfires, I believe there could be a lot of confusion out there. With it being week 1, I'll take the under, expect a low-scoring game and a defensive battle between Ottawa and Montreal.
All right, under it is. I've ticked it off. I will be putting it in after this show is done. And the show is done, guys. Listen, we appreciate you guys tuning in to the inaugural episode of Two and Out, the CFL weekly betting preview show. Rob Braley, thank you for also coming on to the show and sharing your thoughts on this CFL season. For myself, Andrew, and Rob Braley, this is Two and Out. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and good luck with your wagers.